Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to my regular YouTube live stream, Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. It is just gone 3 p.m. UK time to timestamp this. Let's give you a brief update of the major team news ahead of tomorrow's 11 a.m. UK time game week 7 deadline. Luke Shaw faces a fitness test for Manchester United on his shoulder injury and illness. Harry Maguire is out. Everton's big names will not return. Mason Mount is available for Chelsea. Reece James is not. N'Golo Kante definitely misses out. For Leeds, Patrick Bamford hopes to start running next week. Luke Ayling requires a simple surgical intervention on his knee. I think my FPL team needs an intervention, to be very honest with you. Daniel Backman is available for Watford. Ryan Aït-Nouri will be considered for Wolves, but we probably consider Marcal to start. Aït-Nouri returns from concussion. Newcastle's injuries expect to return in game week 8. Tariq Lamptey is training hard according to Graham Potter for Brighton. Granit Xhaka is out for 3 months for Arsenal. No new issues at Palace or Leicester, although Johnny Evans remains a doubt. No new issues for Tottenham last night. Axel Tuanzebe returns from ineligibility for Aston Villa. Vladimir Coufal is a doubt for West Ham United. No word from Brentford on Ethan Pinnock, who was withdrawn during the Liverpool match. Trent Alexander-Arnold is out for Liverpool, but Jurgen Klopp expects him back in game week 8. And Pep Guardiola says that Alexander Zinchenko and Ilkay Gundogan are Manchester City's only injuries ahead of Sunday's big clash at Anfield, but expects both of them to be available from game week 8 as well. As ever, I'll answer the questions in order of submission on YouTube. This will go on for around about the next 55 minutes or so. Mohammed says, "Hi James, how are you?" That's a good start. Yeah, I'm very well. Not too bad, mate. I've had better weeks. My week's got a little bit better the longer it's gone on. What could be the reasoning behind appointing Nuno? I mean, under Jose's defensive approach, Spurs did suffer, so why another defensive one? Well, Fabio Paratici tried to convince Daniel Levy that Nuno wasn't the defensive coach, but I think Fabio Paratici wanted a defensive coach, and so him and Daniel Levy are already on a bit of a collision course. And of course, it went on so long in the summer, it's easy to do the hindsight thing now. Nuno was never a consideration for Tottenham. They went for several people. We've been over this several times. I mean, he probably ended up being around about the 12th person that Tottenham approached for the job. And it went on so late that basically they had to appoint someone with some form of Premier League experience. He was never going to be a long-term appointment. He might be in charge for Tottenham for another 2 weeks, another 2 months, another 19 months. But that's as long as it will be. Stian Bosdale says, "My backline is Trent, Rudiger, Shimikas, Ayling and Livramento." Thanks, mate. You're in trouble. Thomas Coleman says, "Hi James, hope all is well. Would you transfer Trent out for a hit this week?" It's not as simplistic as that, is it? What happens next? Do you want Trent back for game week 8? And the honest answer is, I'll tell everyone now, I've got Trent, I've got Luke Shaw and I've got Luke Ayling, and I haven't made a decision on what I'm doing as yet. It's possible that I'm keeping Trent and Luke Shaw. I will confirm on Twitter tonight, but I generally haven't made my final decision. We discussed a number of different possible solutions for myself on our Patreon podcast that we released this morning. And to be honest, I've been busy making sure I'm getting all the team news right for our advanced tier Patreon stream at 6 p.m. this evening. And once that's finished, I'll have a sit down and make a final proper decision on my team, I think. But in terms of selling Trent for a hit, the thing is, because Trent's probably available in game week 8, it looks, you need the immediate return. And therefore the answer's probably no. But it depends who your other players are, Thomas. Depends, right? Are you full of shit with the rest of your team? In which case the answer might be yes, it is worth it. Are you happy to go without Trent, which is one of the things I'm considering unbelievably, to potentially go without him till around about game week 12, for example? And as someone who hasn't used the wild card yet, it may be then I don't go back until I use the wild card, which seems slightly ridiculous because I wouldn't have expected anything off of Trent this weekend playing Manchester City anyway. So it depends on the rest of your makeup of your squads. There isn't a yes-no answer for it, mate. FPL Finding Glory. Good afternoon, James. I'm hoping for a Spurs win this weekend. It's needed. Yeah, tell me about it. As for FPL, again, I am left considering playing 10 defensive woes or taking a -4 to get 11 on. The thing is, you don't... To kind of contradict what I said about Trent, you don't have to judge it necessarily as 1 week, right? If you're going to improve your team and these were transfers you were going to make in the forthcoming weeks in any case, then yeah, go for it. I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about is moving Luke Shaw, who I really want to play this week because I think there could be a big return for him if he plays. But knowing that I was potentially going to move him anyway, but then am I better off not taking the hit this week and waiting to do it in game week 8 or even possibly in game week 9? Possibly the answer to that is yes. But if you've got long-term plans with the players you're getting in, I take it. Take it. You don't, there's a common, defenders aren't worth the -4. But if those 2 players that you're getting in, or 1 player, is definitely going to make your team better for the next 5-6 game weeks and beyond, then you don't necessarily have to judge it in one go, do you? Hamish Holmes says, howdy James, good to see the big man back with his hat-trick last night. Lots of listen, we played a pub team last night. Rodrigo in for Bamford, 2 punty, keen on St Maximin 2, but Tony may be the smart call in the long run. Yeah, Tony probably is the smart call in the long run, as I covered in quite a bit of detail on Monday's podcast. That's where I want to go long term in terms of third forward spot, and aiming to get that done really for sort of game week 9 or game week 10. That's kind of part of my thinking at the moment. Rodrigo offers you a great 1 week punt. St Maximin offers you a few more games, I think 3 more games of very serious interest before you want to move that on. So you could look at St Maximin for the next 3 and then move it on to Tony. Rodrigo, I love as a punt this week. Love as a punt. If I was on a free hit, I'd probably consider having him actually this week. But it possibly is just that, the 1 week. And you need to be conscious of that. That doesn't mean you can't buy him. Again, it's one of them. I can't see the rest of your squad. It depends what the makeup is. If you've got no other issues, if you've avoided all these defensive injuries that have cursed everyone this week, then I don't mind Rodrigo as the 1 weeker. Free Marson says, hi James, if you had to have 3 players in FPL for the rest of the season from a bottom half team, who would the team and players be? Kane, Son and Lloris. Is that good enough for you? I mean, we are a bottom half team at the moment. We're 11th, right? So, I mean, technically that's fair. Let's say, I'm not sure we should put Emi Martinez in this bracket. They're on the borderline, so I don't really want to consider Villa either. Rafinha, I think at the moment it's difficult to foresee Leeds finishing top half. I don't think they'll be in trouble at all. So definitely Rafinha. Livramento of Southampton, it's gold, isn't he? As a 5th defender, or in some cases a 4th defender. And another one, James. Another one. Might be Tariq Lamptey in a couple of weeks. Actually, I'm going to say Tony. So there's one from each for you. Livramento, Rafinha and Tony. FPL Finding Glory, Camembert or Brie. Which one would be harder to shoot in the woods? I don't know. Well, Bree's a girl's name, isn't it? So that's not good. It was the way Suj pronounced it on Monday's podcast. Was all I heard was bear. Camembert. That's all I heard. Peter G said, hi James, Sky question. Is Trent a hold or swap out for Diaz or Azpilicueta? I have Cancelo and Rudiger, or any other option you think. If Trent was fit this week, Peter, would you keep, or were you looking to sell anyway? If the answer was keep, then I would keep. It's as straightforward as that, as far as I'm concerned. JFPL says, afternoon James, have 2 free transfers, but 1 being used for Lukaku. That's the other problem. I don't just have the defensive issues. The whole plan was to work Lukaku into my team this week. You have 2 free transfers, but 1 being used for Lukaku, but also have Trent, Shaw, Soufal and Jota. Would you take a -4 to get rid of 2 of these, or just shift 1? Soufal, I think, would probably be alright, but you could make the case that this weekend's his last good fixture for a while, and therefore, I mean, West Ham have a difficult run from game week 8 to game week 15. It's quite a tough run. So you may make the case that you were looking to move that on anyway. That's the sort of one where you could make the case and say, okay, it might not work for me this week, but in the longer term, is that something I was going to do anyway? It gives you a bit of cover this week, or in terms of certainty cover. Similar with Luke Shaw, if you're planning to get rid of next week. Jota, There's every chance I'm going to take a -4 and sell Jota or Greenwood. And I'm very undecided on it, I must say. Very, very undecided on it. And I think mainly because I think Manchester United will probably do well tomorrow. I think Jota starts. And I'm conscious that I think he'll probably start at Watford in game week 8 as well. And I'm not sure if I want to bin that yet. That's the problem. And I need to give that some thought. So I'm not going to be the best person to advise it because I don't even know what I'm doing with my own team. I think Soufal, you could move it on, but it's not a great week for it, is it? And the same applies to Shaw. You could make the decision to bin both of those two, Shaw and Soufal. And again, you just look at it as a longer term. Obviously, if you can move for a free transfer, then yeah. I mean, can you... One thing to consider here, can you go something like Trent, who you know's out this week, come down to kind of 4.5 and below? Perhaps look at Burnley is what I'm looking at. Possibly Charlie Taylor or Matt Lowton to solve the problem for me this week, actually. And then go Shaw to Trent next week. But again, it depends on the makeup of your squad. How happy are you with it? Tahar Sufi says Ronaldo to Lukaku or roll the free transfer, have Rudiger and Christensen. Well, I would say for free, I'd probably do it based on seeing quite a bit of Manchester United in midweek. But as I said, I think they'll do well tomorrow. But I'm not convinced necessarily that they'll outscore Chelsea, for example. I think if your plan was to do it, do it. Because there's every chance you don't do it this week, you'll want to do it next week. So I would say yes, but I don't mind if you want to roll. If you're indecisive, Taha, rather than just FOMO, if you're indecisive, the best thing often to do is nothing. Hamish Holmes says start Williams or Livramento. TAA injured and no free transfers left. So I'm grim pickings this week as opposed to slim pickings. I would probably play Williams, actually. So I know that Livramento turned up a little bit of gold with his 5-pointer at Man City a couple of weeks ago. He's probably unlikely to happen again tomorrow. Brandon Williams, actually, if you look at average touch positions for Norwich at Everton last week, was actually Norwich's second highest player. Now, I can't see the clean sheet for Norwich tomorrow, but I would say prospect of an attacking return actually is possibly a little bit better for Williams this week than Livramento. And I'd possibly take a chance that Norwich play a back three again and Burnley might get frustrated. I'd look at that as a possibility. I'd probably go Williams, actually. That's the only week coming up where I could foresee that I would say that. Matthew Halliday says, hi James, do you think that White is the best 4.5 or less defender before game week 15? I'm going to throw the Burnley boys into the hat, Matt. You must remember when I say I'm considering Burnley, I've already got Kieran Tierney, so I don't particularly want to double on Arsenal at the moment. I would strongly consider the Burnley defenders. We looked at them pre-season when Jack Turfy Topper came on correspondent week, and we were very honest about it and said, look, just forget Burnley first few game weeks of the season. Let's look again when that Norwich fixture comes round. And we haven't spoken about it much, but we're here. And actually, there's a lot of people out there who have got defensive issues. And if you look at Burnley's fixtures, all the way up until... Well, I'm looking on my screen. I've got up as far as game week 19 for those who've used the wild card. I'm going to have a little bit further look on it. In fact, yeah, just Manchester United away in game week 20. If we look all the way up to game week 19 for those who've used the first wild card and obviously can't use the second before then. During that period, Burnley have Manchester City away in game week 8. Now, because of the value of like a Taylor or Lowton, you're not going to want to start them. Same with Chelsea away in game week 11. But otherwise, the toughest home game they've got is West Ham in game week 16. They've got Tottenham at home in 13, Everton at home in 19. They have a good run of fixtures for a while. Toughest away game, I would say, other than the two I mentioned, is Villa away in 18. They've got Wolves away in 14. They've got a decent run. And one of the things Jack always says to us about Burnley is, we will keep clean sheets at times that people don't expect it. And I think Burnley are sitting there ready to solve a problem for a lot of people, particularly those who've got the 1 week issues. Like if Trent's back for game week 8, perfect. Let's play the Burnley player this week and have Trent back in next week. Of course, you may want to be conscious that you may need to fill that Burnley player in game week 8, depending on what state you're in, for example. But yeah, the closer it gets to deadline, the more likely I think I am to buy a Burnley player. I would personally probably rather go for Charlie Taylor rather than Matt Lowton, but I honestly, I think you could probably flip a coin between the two of them. And I think that's what I'm going to end up doing, because I'd look at a player like that and go, am I happy for you to be first sub for me till I use my first wild card? And I'd say the answer is probably yes. It probably is. So I'd consider Burnley players. I really, really would. Rima Rodri says, you kept ignoring Neil Maupay, and now he scored 5 goals. You eat the mud. I will eat the mud, mate. Why is nobody else talking about Neil Maupay? It's because everybody suffered too much over the last couple of years. And it's worth saying, Brighton had a really good set of first six fixtures. He has performed very well. I think he is going under the radar. I said on Monday's podcast, look, we've not spoken about him enough. And they do have Norwich away next week. But after that, Manchester City, Liverpool. Arsenal at home this weekend is not easy either. Brighton have a few injury issues to contend with. It's a no from me. And it will remain that way. And Rima, you can message me next week and tell me to eat the mud as well. But if you do, I'll probably just block you, mate. Steve Jones says, hi James, I have 5.7 to choose a defender to go alongside Rudiger and Semedo. Thinking Tierney, Laporte, or a sneaky punt on Chilwell. Ideally a long-term hold. Any other suggestions? I could go. One of the moves that I'm considering is, I obviously want to get Lukaku in. I've got 1.8 million in the bank. Danny Ings to Lukaku leaves me minus 2 million. I could go Trent to Laporte. And that's the 2 free transfers done, and probably leaves me covered for this week. But I'm not sure how happy I would be with that next week, because then I've got to take hits to get Trent back in if that's what I want to do, for example. So I would try and think of it. You're saying long term. I think Tierney probably, and I'm not saying Tierney outscores Laporte, but I think actually leaving that little bit of money at the moment might be something that opens up Cancelo for you. And I'd rather go and get Cancelo than Laporte, for example. And there's no desperation to get the City player this week, is there, with Liverpool away? So I'm going to say Tierney. I've got him as well. I think he's a good asset. They've got good fixtures as well up until game week 14. There's Liverpool away, obviously. But I think certainly up to before game week 12, you could say, yeah, there's some decent fixtures in there for Kieran Tierney. Ollie Blake says, best midfield price pick for game week 7 only, 6.6 and under. That's the easiest question that I'm going to get on this stream. And the answer to that is Rafinha. In my team right now, and I think this is extremely unlikely, I've actually got the captaincy bust on Rafinha. I think I would more likely go with Antonio personally. And I am likely to get Lukaku in, I think. But I think he's a very reasonable captaincy option this week, Rafinha. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds are the highest scoring team this weekend. I think he's a great option. So that's very straightforward, Ollie. Rafinha. If you already have Rafinha and you want a 1 week punt, I would consider Jared Bowen of West Ham. I think is due. Reckoner says, hi James, already have Rudiger, but rest the defence in tatters. Considering a -4 from Christensen, but worried about rotation. Maybe Tierney is a safer option, possibly wildcard next week. This is why, if you're saying your wildcard next week, suck it up, don't do anything. Honestly, you could take the -4 for Christensen and be worse off. Do I particularly fancy Arsenal for a clean sheet this week? No, I think Arsenal probably will win at Brighton, but I'm not convinced about a clean sheet this weekend. So it's a no. It's a no. If you're going to wildcard next week, that's different to what I said to the others who have been saying, look, if you're thinking longer term, that's okay. Think longer term. If you're wildcard next week for a defender, without clear kind of like City, Liverpool playing each other and stuff, and an indecision about who will start for Chelsea, I'd just go 10 players, I think. Taffy said, hi James, thoughts and view on Southampton midfield assets on wildcard. Avoid. frankly. They do have a great run of fixtures from game week 8 to 12. We've highlighted this, and I think we'll speak about Saints a lot more after this Chelsea game. Ward-Prowse is currently dealing with a knee issue. He should play this weekend. He's also been sick most of the week. Now, knowing JWP, he'll almost definitely play. And because of what he does at dead ball situations, he can return in any game. FPL option? No, I'm not convinced. A little bit too expensive. If he was in more like the 5.5 range, I'd say, yeah, keep an eye on him. Stuart Armstrong's returned to training. Theo Walcott's also got to come back as well. Elianusi Redmond, therefore, with Gineppo in the conversation as well. There's too much going on now. Armstrong's the best one. He hasn't played yet this season. I understand he'll probably be on the bench at Chelsea tomorrow. But it's an avoid, mate. It's an avoid, in my opinion. Rasmus Anderson says, hi everyone, what is the situation with UK's red list now? If the situation is still the same, do we know if the South American players that have been called up, for example Rafinha, will be allowed to go? So, it looks like, and I'd probably recommend trying to find Dean Smith's comments from earlier today in his Aston Villa press comments. So, my understanding is that the Premier League are about to strike an agreement with the government, which means that those who have been vaccinated will be able to play when they come back. That's where it's at. So if they've been double vaccinated, they can play. The problem is, we don't have a list of who's been vaccinated and who's not. Now, what I can tell you is, Emi Martinez is definitely one of them because Dean Smith said it's not a problem. He's been double vaccinated. But for the others, not got a clue. No idea. So if you're still worried about it, don't buy South American players, but just know that if you buy Rafinha this weekend, I reckon it'll still be worth it, even if he misses game week 8. That's generally my opinion on that. Otherwise, yeah, they're probably worth avoiding. So I'd be conscious of that. There should hopefully be a little bit more clarity later today. Pedro Gaming says, sometimes you need to listen to others' opinion. Last week I told you to play Sarr in goal on Deadline stream, but instead you chose cycling goalkeeper. Now transferring Pookie for Ings. Thanks. Pedro Gaming, I would say that a weakness of my game is that I don't listen to other people. I openly admit that. I come to my own decisions by myself and just get on with it, and I won't be swayed at that point. So, to be honest, last Friday I did have indecisiveness, as I said on our Patreon pod, in terms of who I would play in goal. Okay, I lost out on 11 points. Shit happens. Do I regret the decision? No. Am I going to buy Timu Pukki? No. FTLOL podcast. Hi James, do you think Rafinha and Jimenez will both play game week 8 or will the games come too soon? It's kind of just said. I don't really have the answer. My instinct would be it'd probably be okay. They'll come to an agreement or something like that. But you need to follow the news this week. Jimenez, I think maybe because of that is probably a no buy. Rafinha, I just think it's so good for him in 7, 9, 10. Even if he missed game week 8, I would still want him. That's my opinion on it at the moment. Simon Matthews says Jimenez or Saint Maximin, and because of that very reason, the sensible answer, Simon, is Saint Maximin. Birth Media said, would you take a hit for Trent? Will wildcard him in game week 8 if fit? You mean take a hit to get rid of him? I've already covered this for someone else. Adam Keener said, we should make a new rule. Can't ask a question unless you've liked the video. What a great shout, Adam. I've got no way of knowing that, unfortunately. But yeah, obviously, for those in the stream, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It's all appreciated to spread the Planet FPL word. For those on the audio, rating on iTunes, etc. would be much appreciated. Jahan Ahmed says, if Kane is sold in summer for circa £150 million, what 3 first-team players would you love to see come in with that money? I would want to see Tottenham to spend all of it on young players. So it's not even first team players. There's no point Tottenham selling Kane for 150 million and spending 80 million on another forward and 60 million on a centre back or something. I want Tottenham to go back to what got them in this position in the first place, and that was investing in the best young players. I'm watching best young players go to other clubs all over the place. And I don't know why Tottenham aren't getting involved. We haven't bought a good young player from the Championship for ages. Watch Eberezer Eze go to Crystal Palace last year. Absolutely would have been perfect for us. I want Tottenham to fix that problem first. We can't compete, no matter how much money we've got, we can't compete financially with Chelsea, City, United and stuff. So you have to punch clever. You have to do it in different ways. And I don't know why, over the last 3 or 4 years, Tottenham have stopped taking very good young, particularly British talent. Tottenham need to get back to doing that. Gareth Lazy Grandfather said, I saw you on TV in the match. You were standing up and putting finger inside your nose. That's not true, mate. Because if it was, I think it'd be all over Twitter, mate. Sean Wang Chi, hi James. Thoughts on Southgate bringing injured players to the internationals? So Thomas Tuchel said today that the only way Reece James will be playing for England during the international break is if he's playing for the water polo team. So, but then Tuchel did say, my understanding is he's not fit. maybe Tuchel's not spoke to Reece James. Maybe he is fit, but yeah, I mean the communication there, one way or the other's got to be better. You know, Southgate should be speaking to Tuchel and saying, look, what's the situation? I want to call him up. What do you think? What's happening? Even if it's a case that Southgate, and probably in a lot of cases does have link to doctors and physios at clubs and whatnots, should still be speaking to the manager. Hasselbank is win. Hi James, what is more likely, Nuno to win the Europa Conference with Spurs or Ollie to win a trophy with United? Nuno to win the Conference League with Tottenham. A lot of that will depend on which teams fall out of the Europa League, because Tottenham will have to beat a couple of good teams to win this. That's fairly certain. But yeah, that probably is more likely. United aren't going to win the league for me. We've got a major issue defensively in terms of pressing from the front, which is part caused because of Ronaldo. But obviously Ronaldo is an incredible player, so he gives back to United in terms of his goal scoring. But can't see him win the league. I think they'll... On what I've seen in the few games since Ronaldo's joined, Manchester United are going to lose some games that they shouldn't. And I don't think the other 3 teams are going to do that often enough. Can't see him win the Champions League. Can't see it. Obviously, they could win the FA Cup. But is that more likely than Tottenham winning the Europa Conference League? It's probably about level, I'd guess. Shifo says, I know I seem ungrateful, but I'm stuck in rank between 25,000 and 30,000 since game week 2. Yes, Shifo, you're ungrateful. Any general advice to break out of this range? I have 3 injured players, thinking of a wildcard to differentiate my team as well. Shifo, ask someone who's got experience of being in that position in the last couple of years. You're asking the wrong person, mate. Wildcard because of your rank? No. I mean, personally, if I was you, I'd quite happy to be stuck between 25 and 30k in 20 game weeks' time and then make a push for the end, personally. Lalu Tree says, I got Trent, Ayling, Reece James, Livramento and Semedo. Plan to make Ayling to Rudiger and Jota to Saka for a -4 by hoping TAA and Reece James available for game week 8. Thoughts? So, you're going to play this... What are you going to play this week? All you've got is Semedo and Livramento. And you're going to bring Rudiger in for Ayling. I'd bin Reece James. Personally. Before I did the Jota to Saka, I'd bin Reece James. I'd bin Reece James. I'd go Burnley Defender. And I'd reassess it once you got the full information in 2 weeks' time. And I'd keep Trent. That's what. So, bin Ayling and Reece James. Reece James could be fit in 2 weeks. He might not play. So, you asked again. This is the wrong person because I'm not big on the Chelsea wingbacks. I can't believe I haven't had a Marcos Alonso question yet, which is quite nice. But I'll shout that out now. I've no clue if Marcos Alonso is going to start this week. If you're asking me, do I think he does? I'm going to say yeah, probably. But this problem with the Chelsea wingbacks is never going to go away. That's why I've no interest in them personally. Joe Finley Badder says, hi James, set on wildcard 8, 2 questions. Best defender to replace Trent for 1 week and Rafinha in for Greenwood, Jota or Ben Rama. Not Ben Rama, keep him. It's tough. I think it's got to be Jota, isn't it? If we're just looking at just the 1 week, I think it's to move Jota. In terms of best defender for 1 week, I mean, it's still a Chelsea player. Rudiger will likely play. As Pellicer, I would think, would play. you could consider someone outside the box who's probably, I'm going to guess, maybe affordable for you, Joe, depending on what you're doing. Perhaps Aaron Cresswell of West Ham might be a decent shout, possibly. Junior Firpo of Leeds, if you want to live on the edge, or if you need to go cheap, as said previously, consider the Burnley players. Neil Thompson says, afternoon, loving the content this week. Thanks, Neil. No questions for a change. Try not to think about my team. Have a great weekend. Atul Balaji says, would you sell Jota for a free transfer and for whom? Same price or under. I have Rafinha and Gallagher. I don't know what to do with Jota. Keep him then. Simple as that. Keep him. If you're indecisive, I'll let him sit there. I think he probably starts on Sunday, personally. I just think Roberto Firmino's not had enough minutes in the 2 substitute appearances to make me think that he's going to start. And against Manchester City, in that tactical setup, late in that game, Klopp may well need to count on Firmino. So there's a good chance if he starts him, we don't know if he'll be able to get through 90 minutes or not. So I think Jota possibly starts again. And obviously, in game week 8, it's dependent on how the players come back from the internationals in terms of whether he starts again at Watford. So you don't know what to do at all. It's very straightforward. Keep him. Madeline Tudor says, sure, keep or sell. I would say if you can move him on for a free transfer and you don't have any other problems, possibly do it. But if you've got good bench coverage, I would want to keep him this week and sell next week. Matassim says, on wildcard, which combination do you prefer out of Grealish, Tony and Laporte, or Jota, Tony, Alonso? And Grealish, Armstrong, Alonso. Guess what? It's the one without Alonso. Alistair Coper says, hey mate, if you were picking 2 defenders as a 1-week punt this week, who would you go for? No bench cover, so I can't really go for a rotation rest. Cheers and good luck. Kind of just covered that, Alistair, but thanks for the question. Chris Ewers says, hi James, played wildcard this week. Would you go for Marcel or Livramento to rotate with White over the next 5-10 game weeks? Livramento, definitely. Sam Holden says, on wildcard, last spot comes down to Gallagher or a huge punt on Harrison. Just can't stop looking at that Leeds run next 5. We'll be first bench most of the time. Right, okay, well that kind of changes the game, Sam. So if you can afford to leave Harrison on the bench, maybe punt it. I know Andy Martin, our Leeds correspondent, thinks he'll play. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know the team. But he thinks he'll probably play. I think he'll probably play. I think Rafinha might even end up playing in a central position tomorrow. I don't mind the Harrison punt, actually. What are you expecting from Gallagher next 4? And that's Leeds' great 4. So punt Harrison for 4. If you've got the ability to bench him if it's bad, fine, do so. And then move to Gallagher in 11. Andrew Sands says, hi James, stay safe and well. You and Suj have great game weeks. Thanks very much, Andrew. Wish you well. Mayar says, hi James, non-FPL question. Hallelujah. If Mane and Son Heung-min swap clubs in the next transfer window, would you be happy or unhappy? I would say unhappy. That's not a slight on Sadio Mane. I would just say I've got the personal emotion already built up with Sonny. So, no. In terms of who's the better player, I think Son is the better finisher. He probably has better technique than Mane, but Mane has some incredible attributes. And I think there's not a lot between the 2 players. Put it this way, I wouldn't be suicidal if it did happen, but I've got the personal connection with Sonny, so I'd rather keep him. Mick says, what do you make of Klopp's comments that he might change system? What do I make of it? I make of it a very, very, very small possibility that Liverpool play 4-2-3-1, which is how they finished the game at Brentford. And the idea behind that, if he goes down that route, will be the same as the idea was late in the game against Brentford. And you can go and watch this back by looking at the second and third goals, as I did for our advanced tier patrons in a tactical video yesterday. Liverpool had problems stopping the ball coming into the penalty area against Brentford. Now, Manchester City are not the sort that are going to throw it in the box, but it might be the sort of area where they look for overloads against Liverpool. So one solution to that is to play 4-2-3-1 and play Mane left, Jota right, Salah up front with Firmino at 10. The danger with that is Firmino has to go very deep, but because the wide players will be instructed to be more defensive than they normally are, it can revert into a 4-4-1-1 and Firmino can get round Rodri. It can work. I certainly would not foresee Liverpool changing to a back three, for example. That wouldn't make sense. Trent's out and they're going to play a back three. No, that doesn't make sense. So there is scope for the 4-2-3-1, but I doubt we will see it. Chris Stewart says, who would your goalkeeper be if you were on wildcard? I think I would go for Aaron Ramsdale. In all honesty, I think that's probably where I'd go. I think that looks secure as Arsenal's number one now. I don't think Pope or Martinez are quite justifiable for that value because both teams now have 4.5 million options. Even Villa do with Twan-Zebu, I'm sure, come back into the Villa team. And Villa's wing-backs are worth, as discussed on yesterday's Clash of Correspondents, particularly Matty Cash, worth keeping an eye on at kind of 5 million or so. So I don't think it's worth going for those guys. I'm happy that I've got Sarr, kind of up until I'm going to wildcard. I think that's fine. The irony, of course, is if Batman hadn't got injured, I never would have left him out last week. But again, as I said to the earlier questioner, I have no regrets about doing it. I think Ramsdale, to be honest. FPL telling Josh, hey James, any plans when you were wildcard yet? Game week 8 or holding longer? It has been considered this week because those three. The Trent problem has obviously come from nowhere. That was very unexpected. If Trent was fit, I'd just be moving ahead with probably something like Jota to Brownhill and Ings to Lukaku, and that would be the end of it. And knowing that I've got Trent, Rudiger, and Kieran Tierney as a worst case scenario, and I'd be very unlucky to end with Rudiger not playing. But although that can happen any week, so I mean, for me, it's still probably 15. Josh is where I'm at in terms of the Manchester United swing. There's also a great swing for Manchester City there as well. You could argue City's is a little bit earlier, but I'd judge Everton at home, West Ham at home, and Villa away as not the sort of games I'd expect them to go mad in. And there's a few others who've got enablers that kind of swing from there as well. Watford's actually won, although they play City, I think, in 15. They've got a decent run of fixtures afterwards and stuff. So I think probably 15, but prepared to use it anytime now, mate. Anytime. I think, honestly, is probably at the stage where if I'd have had an attacking injury, I could have ended up using it this week. Mayo says, what about Lukaku and Kane swap clubs? No interest in that, mate. Seb Fox says, Cancelo, Diaz or Trent for the next 4? Cancelo. It's got to be, isn't it? Really? I think. If we say we're losing Trent for 1, I think Cancelo probably outscores Diaz. So Cancelo for me, Seb. Josh Castle says, hi James, love your work, thank you. My question this week is, would you play your 5th midfielder for an almost certain 2-pointer or take a 4-point hit to bring in Jimenez for Bamford? I think I'd probably do it because it's just a personal Josh that I wouldn't ever want to be in a situation where the 4.5's got to start for me. I don't think. So I think I'd do it. I'd do it and take the chance. Philip Sukter says, hi James, thanks for the great content. Does it make sense to use my 2 free transfers to transfer Ayling and Shaw to Christensen and Rudiger? Or is it better to transfer Ayling and Shimikas to Christensen and Livramento? Depends. What do you want with that long term? So getting Christensen can obviously leave you with the same problem. I mean, if you go Christensen and Rudiger, you are dirty unlucky if neither of them play. So it's also dependent on what the rest of your bench is. But to be honest, Philip, I would prioritise just getting Rudiger in as the Chelsea defender who is going to play 9 out of 10 game weeks. At some point it will get left out. It will happen to all of them. But he's going to play nearly every game as it stands. Nicky Kassam says, Jota to Saka worth a -4. Want Bukayo long term. And Portugal fixture on 13th making me want to bin Diego. When's the 13th? That's on the Wednesday. I see what you're saying. So they play Wednesday night and then Liverpool Saturday lunchtime. Okay, yeah. It's worth considering on your thoughts. And I guess that's something I need to do in terms of checking that. But you've part helped me with my thinking for Jota, I should imagine. Worth the -4 though. Not convinced. It might be that Jota becomes a sacrifice for me as a -4, but if you ask me just as a straight, like, you've already made your one free transfer, you want to make another one, I'm probably going to say no, to be honest, and you can make the decision before game week 8. If it's part of what I'm thinking, so it might be Burnley defender, Smith Rowe and Lukaku, for example, and losing Jota is part of that, then that's possibly what I'm going to do. But just as a one, I've obviously got to do that to get the funds for Lukaku, right? If it's just for the one transfer, no, I'm going to say. Ross Johnson says, hi James, Friday afternoon has just got interesting. Thanks for coming on. I hope you're well, mate. Best formation going forward, I'm seriously considering 5-2-3. As would I. If I didn't probably have to have 4.5 million midfielders on the bench. I'm probably aiming towards a 4-3-3. And what I want to have with that is an 11th and 12th man, essentially. So kind of something at sort of Emil Smith-Rowe's kind of value, 5.3, and something at Kieran Tierney's value of kind of 4.9, where I can make a week-to-week decision. Now, having 2 Arsenal players will make that decision quite difficult, but I think you get the theory of what I'm trying to say. And the reason why 5 at the back is bad is because you can have 3 shit bench players with 2-pointers, basically. And that's why I want an 11th and 12th man. And to be honest, 13th man, I'm probably looking at Livramento or Burnley defender. Just to give it something a little bit stronger, because the problems are just ongoing at the moment, unfortunately. And I think I need that cover while I fix a couple of problems without using the wild card. You go 5-2-3, the chances are you are going to end up with like Brownhill, Sissoko and Gilmore or something. And there's going to be regular weeks where one of them comes into your team. And it's shite, isn't it? If you can make it work where it's a flip between a 4-3-3 and a 5-2-3, I don't mind so much. But I think the third midfielder's got to be at least in kind of Smith Rowe, Gallagher area. And these aren't really players that you want to leave out too often. J23 says, hi, I have both Trent and James out and only have Livramento coming on. Should I replace James for someone, and if yes, any ideas on who? Yeah, Burnley, fix your problem this week, fix the next problem next week. Atul says, Klopp with or without the glasses. I never even noticed he lost them till someone mentioned it to me, but I'm going to go with the glasses. Reese Walker says, hi James, planning on taking -4 to bring Rudiger in for either Shaw or Dean. Already have my 2 free transfers. The plan was to move on Dean, but now I'm not so sure with the news on Shaw. Any advice? Thanks. The advice is, Reese, depends on your bench, but yeah, just get Luke Dean moving on, mate, I would say. Of course, the flip is you can leave him this week. You never know your luck. West Ham at home, Watford at home, Wolves away. This is always the problem with Luke Dean. When are you ever going to be able to get rid of him? He's going to be hemorrhaging value as well. He must be down to sort of 5.3 now. I think Shaw will play, is my instinct. That's my instinct. It's nothing more than that. So I'd move Dean, but it's very dependent on your squad, mate, what you've got on that bench. James B. Cook says, would you take a -4 to transfer Trent and Ayling out for 2 Chelsea defenders? If so, which 2? The 2 for me would be Rudiger and Azpilicueta. In theory, you should make that back immediately in at least appearance points. But you need to consider what your solution is to get Trent back. Jamie Jim says, hi James, I'm removing Bruno and a forward to bring in a midfielder and Lukaku. Which forward should go? Jimenez, Antonio or Tony? The mid I bring in will be the same price as the forward who goes. In that case, I'd sell Tony, because I just don't think you can move Jimenez this week home to Newcastle if you already own. Antonio is a no sell. So by default it has to be Tony, but I would want him back in a few weeks. So that would be the answer, Tony. Adash says, hi James, is Jota to Smith Rowe and 4.5 million striker to Jimenez for a -4 worth it? Jota has a tough game this week and might not be nailed going forward. I'm going to say no, mate. No, I think Jota starts this weekend. Ross Johnson says, would you take Ryan Mason over Nuno? Be interesting to hear your thoughts on this. No, I wouldn't. I've seen Ryan Mason. Ryan's not ready. You asked me that question in 5-6 years, you might get a very different answer on that. Ryan's not ready to be manager of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. If he was, he would have got the gig. As much as Nuno's pissed us all off this week, and I'm very, very annoyed, there are some things that I have seen that I have liked that date back to pre-season, and there are only 6 games gone. In the 6 games, we've played 3 teams who, in my opinion, will finish in the top 6. 2 of them certainly in the top 3/4, and I personally think Arsenal will finish top 6. I wouldn't even be surprised if Arsenal finish 5th, actually. So what I need to see is not the nonsense that I saw last Sunday, and know that can never happen again in terms of his tactical setup. I need to know that I can never again see the midfield 3 that started at Crystal Palace in game week 4. But I don't think it's time just to go sack him. But Sunday's a very big game. Very big game. And I know, and I've known this from the start, it was not going to be a long-term appointment. On the Patreon podcast we did in the summer, kind of detailing how we ended up being with Nuno and all the people that Tottenham approached, and the kind of laughable falling apart of situation after situation with Conte and Fonseca and Gattuso and all this kind of malarkey. Potter not being interested, Rodgers not being interested. The one thing I said on that podcast then, back in July, was that Nuno Espirito Santo would almost definitely not be Tottenham Hotspur manager at the end of his 2-year contract. And I also said that even if Tottenham were challenging for the top 4, if Maurizio Pochettino became available, Tottenham would sack Santo and appoint Pochettino. Now, Pochettino had a good result in a week, so I don't suppose that's going to happen anytime soon. But it's just not a long-term appointment. It is a stopgap. Austin Laley says, "Hi James, Sarr or Saka on the wild card?" For me, it'd be Saka. Sarr's not a consideration for me now. Good fixture this week away to Leeds. Brutal run of fixtures from game week 8 to game week 15. And as Watford's talisman, it doesn't mean that you can't return in them. But at the same time, Saka's got a very healthy set of fixtures. They don't have Europe to worry about in terms of rotation. He's their best player, I would say, arguably. So I think he plays all the time, Saka. So it would be Saka for me. And I wouldn't say it's impossible that I get Saka today. It's probably not going to be affordable. And I think Smith Rowe, unfortunately, might be the more likely for me. But then gets to that kind of balance of squad where I kind of flip-flopping between the 4-4-2 and 4-3-3 where I said where Smith Rowe fits that better. But it's not impossible that I look at getting Saka today, actually. If that's workable financially. So definitely Saka. Excuse me, Andrew Sands says, your thoughts on Vicente Gaeta on a game week 8 wildcard? My second option would be Raya. Palace have a decent fixture swing soon. They do. As I said earlier, I prefer Ramsdale. I mean, Palace have, from game week 8, 2 of Palace's next 3 is Arsenal away, Man City away. Okay, there's good fixtures, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14 from, I guess, if 14 leads away, you've always got the potential for a high score for a goalkeeper. So they do have a good swing. We're going to speak to McTavius before they play Newcastle in game week 9 on Clash of the Correspondents. That's been planned in. No, though. It'd be Ramsdale for me. He's the better of the call. Raya, I quite like again from game week 9-10, actually. And I think I'd rather go Raya than Gaeta, actually, I think. JP says, hi James, wants to avoid wildcard but planned Bruno and striker to Lukaku and midfielder move, not ideal. TAA, Ayling and Shaw flags, would have a good 2-4-3 and hope Shaw plays. Saving wildcard, should I fix defence instead? I'd save it, mate. I'd save it. If you're unsure, don't use it and leave yourself with less than a day in terms of thinking space and stuff. That's if you've got spare time to actually give it proper thought. So no, I wouldn't use it, mate. Finn, Cox, Harrison, Short and Jota, Rudiger and Sarr, then wildcard game week 8. Seems reasonable for 2 free transfers. Ryan says, hi James, you good? I'm... End of message. Yes, very well, thank you Ryan. Essence says, was busy listening to the differential show, but what do you think of Bamford to Tony? I don't mind it. as long as you're of the decision that that's the player you want, you're going to accept it's going to be long term. That would be my view on getting Tony, because there are a few better ones to get for this week. I mean, Rodrigo's name is worth throwing in there as well. Chris Wood of Burnley for this week as well. Jimenez, obviously. As long as that's a long-term thought and you go, do you know what, I'm going to put that to bed. This guy's my second, third forward, whatever it is for you. I'll forget about it and accept that he's got West Ham away and Chelsea at home are particularly tough fixtures, right? Crack on. But he can return in them. I would not bench him, honestly. Even playing Chelsea next week, do not bench him. RB says, hi James, I fell for Traore XG hype, or XGI, sorry, expected goal involvement hype 2 weeks back, and now have him for Newcastle. Would you hold one more week or dump for Rafinha? I can do Jota to Rafinha. I would do Jota to Rafinha. This is exactly what I said on Monday's podcast, was when Suj kept trying to push for the Arsenal-Tottenham talk, and I was like, look, you know, we have to consider this Wolves. There'll be other people like you in the same position with Trincao. I think Traore starts this week, would be my guess. I think Trincao is less sure. Actually, I think Daniel Podence might keep his place, but I would expect Traore to come back in for Hwang. Now, because of the Newcastle fixture, this is what I said, you got to keep. You'd be gutted if you sell him and he's in the team. And then know that if he's in the team and nothing happens, fine. It is what it is. Think about how Leeds played against Newcastle and stuff, and the kind of damage that Traore can do. I think, unfortunately, it's a keep this week. But I'd be looking to move it on. I never bought into, and I understand why he did, because statistically it did look great. It was also sided by Traore by the fact that he had two massive chances against Leicester and Tottenham respectively. I mean, they were huge, big chances that he failed to convert. And as I said, these easier fixtures in a roundabout way perhaps wouldn't suit him. I would want to move him on, but I wouldn't want to sell any attacking player before Newcastle at home. Danny Mac. Hi James, big fan. Hello Danny. Any thoughts on Foden potentially becoming an option over the next 4 weeks? Yes, he could do. I think in that value at the moment, I'd probably have a slight preference for Grealish, and that comes from my own, where's Foden going to play? Is he going back left? Is he going to play as false 9? Is he going to play as a 10? Is he going to play on the right? So I don't have the information, and that puts me off when I'm buying a player, to kind of not have a vision of what's happening. And I'm not sure we get that vision this weekend, because it could be that he plays as the furthest forward player against Liverpool again. And it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen against Burnley. But yes, absolutely one to keep an eye on. We'll obviously have next to no ownership at the moment, and this might become a conversation again over the next few weeks, I think. Neil Thompson said, change my mind, Sarr or Jota down to Rafinha. Oh yeah, get Rafinha, Neil. Ryan says, he's finished it this time. Hi James, you good? Yes, I'm struggling. Midfield is currently Salah, Torres, Jota, Gray, and a 4.4. Would you sell 1 for -4 or 2 for -8? Saka, Rafinha, the guys I want. Yeah, Torres, Rafinha. This is why I put a little message in the pin tweet with repeat questions. It's not necessarily a repeat question, but it's going to get a repeat answer. SL McCowie says, hi James, is Lingard show about to start? No, mate. Crollo says, hey James, would you do Williams to Azpilicueta or Cancelo? Then a Chelsea wing-back next week for a -4. Backline of TAA, Rudiger, Livramento, Tierney. Can get the other for a -4 with exact money next week. Next week is miles away. It's international break. You can have the plan. Don't overthink it. Can you move Williams to one of the other two? Yeah, get it done, mate. Get it done. Get it done. Are you looking to end up with treble Chelsea defensively then? If you go Azpilicueta and Rudiger, you're going to go for the James or Alonso for the third? You can do. I mean, I don't hate it. I've done treble ups before. But I would want Cancelo. I'd just look at it and go, yeah, do you know, it's great. Not great fixture this week, but get him in. Get him in if you can. I probably can't. Even if I move Trent to Cancelo, it still fucks my system up. So, because I can't, I think the rest of you should. Ayub says, Jota and Brandon Williams to Saka and Rudiger for a hit. Not big on that. Not big on that. I mean, again, it's another one. If that makes you feel better about your team longer term, fine, take it on. But it also feels a little bit unnecessary to do it for a hit. Steve Jones says, I was down your way on Saturday night for the AJ fight. What a stadium. Shame about the quality of football it's seen since you moved in. Surely a matter of time until you appoint a proper manager. I wouldn't bank on it because Daniel Levy's record of appointing managers is not great. You might just get another shit one instead. I didn't think about it till I got to the stadium last night. But I took a picture that I posted on Twitter, which I thought looked amazing, actually. I hadn't comprehended that. Obviously, it was the first time I'd been at the stadium at night since before COVID, since we played Norwich in March of 2020. So it'd been like 18 months. And I was like, wow, this place. Shame it was fucking half empty, but I understand the fans voting with their feet and because of the competition as well. Although, to be fair, Tottenham priced the tickets very fairly last night. Yeah, what a place it is. Brian McKenna says, hi, if Bruno is on penalties, does that change the equation on him versus Ronaldo enough to swing it for him? Stats similar to last season so far. Well, if he can't put the penalty in the net, it doesn't matter. Jules Breach, the brilliant Jules Breach, asked Fernandes, if he was on pens. And Fernandes suggested that he might still be on them. But personally, I don't like making decisions on penalties. I wouldn't let it sway you as much. United don't look like they're going to get as many penalties as they got in the past, judging by what's happened so far this season. Was that their first one, I think? So what, 1 in 6? Perhaps the stricter ruling in terms of contact might be counted against some players who go down easy. United have a few of them, as do every other club. Right, I'm going to finish with this one because I can see the one afterwards has got Jota and Rafinha in the question. But thank you for the question, Gorang. Jagnaf Ramak Andran says, hey James, good morning mate, maybe where you are. My back five is Shaw, Trent, Cancelo, Livramento and Soufal. I've got 2 free transfers. Good to get Rudiger in for Shaw. Rudiger in for Shaw leaves you worst case Rudiger, Cancelo, Livramento. Worst case. Soufal should be okay. He'll probably play. And then that's a decent back three. Soufal, Rudiger and Cancelo for this week. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. And if you want to use the other free transfer, by all means, use it. But I think that Livramento is great long term. It's just, for me, the entry point's shit. If Southampton had a good fixture this week, I'd just get Livramento. But the fact I probably need it this week, and what I've said about Burnley, means I'm possibly going to edge that way. But I will tweet my team on Twitter tonight, and it'll be up on the screen for the deadline stream for you tomorrow as well, of course. That's all for now, guys. Thanks very much for your questions. Sorry to those who I didn't get to. If you want to take a screenshot of your question in the chat, please do so now. Feel free to send me a DM. I will respond to you before I go to bed this evening. If it's something that I've already answered on the stream, please don't do it though. Right, what's left to go? So, team new stream for the advanced tier patrons, 6 o'clock tonight. Deadline stream tomorrow for you, 10 a.m. UK time. Obviously, it is the first of the month as well. So if you would like to support the content that we provide, not because you think you're going to become a better FPL manager, you can support us at www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. There will be over 20 additional podcasts on our Patreon network from intermediate tier and above, and an additional 20 plus videos for our advanced tier patrons as well, where I do regular content for them Monday to Friday. And if you just want to buy us half a pint of beer for £3 a month, you can join the community, join the Slack channel, find out about our secret meetup next Saturday, and support the content. We'd love to have you with us. It's the first of the month, so no better time to join than now. Next week, main podcast will be Monday. Tuesday will be a People's Poll. Wednesday will be Sky. Thursday's Clash of Correspondence next week is with FPL Dummy Tom and Rotation FPL Brentford and Chelsea. And we'll also have Manchester City against Burnley with Johnny Pringle and Turfy Top on the Thursday afterwards before game week 8 as well. And I'll be back streaming, I guess, this time next week probably. Other than that, wish you all the very best of luck. Hope your arrows are green for the game week. Be nice to each other. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.